pursuits are dangerous. So I don't, and pursuits shouldn't be the norm. We should be we're in a team. You call ahead and you get somebody else to deal with it. And I've not seen in the 6 months I've been here, because I look at these things, I have not seen any large number of officer. Question is, who is responsible for it?
Right.
And that's what we have to, because they're going through intersections and I think that's the dangerous maneuver, which is to have your blue lights on and be cursory about it. I've not seen that to be a problem, but we can get an extra report on that.
Well, could we, who will have the release responsibility if any of these cars are destroyed? Now, if we go into this agreement with Enterprise, who would be responsible for the vehicles if any of them are destroyed?
We would be responsible for the vehicles, yes.
Okay, but we don't have a current insurance. We are liable out of pocket, right?
That's right. So again, we lease. There's a set cost per vehicle. It's about $4,500. And if we total a vehicle, one of those lease vehicles, we would extend that to another. We would just lease another vehicle, and then we would just own that total vehicle. Again, the plan is for us to sell these lease vehicles at the end of the 5-year lease span, and then we retain the equity. We just would get no equity really for that total vehicle.
Well, with the closer we get to becoming fully electric, what will happen with our mechanic staff? Will we start depleting our mechanics?
I don't think that we would, Alderman, because look at the rest of the fleet. We have specialty vehicles that we'll always have.
And I think
which includes especially, you see the backhauls, you see the dump trucks. That end of the fleet has always been sacrificial to the sedans. Now that we're moving from to a more efficiently maintained sedan, now we can start maintaining our dump trucks and flatbeds and even the street sweepers and the backhauls and the specialty vehicles. We'll do a better job at that, and I don't see us reducing our mechanic workforce. I see them getting more specialized in keeping those kinds of vehicles up.
Yeah, well, different kinds of mechanics, correct.
Okay, Mike, I sent you an email today with some of that involved with some of our equipment that we're not using, especially when it comes to maintenance in our squares. So just check that email and get back to me, please.
Do that, yes. It's a good. We're maintaining in the public realm, and I welcome it, because you have to say, well, what's the best way to do this? In terms of the specialty landscaping that we do. I personally believe in letting our own crews do that as much as possible. One of the ways is, we could outsource that, and then people don't pay benefits and medical and so forth. But any technique we use, yes, I'll get your report on that, and let's make sure that we're doing it as efficiently as possible.
Okay, I just wanted to throw out there also, Brent, about what we do as it relates to GPS on vehicles. Now we are better able to track not only the location of our vehicles, but the activity of our vehicles. Talk a little bit about that. Then we go to Alderwoman Wilder Bryan, then Alderman Blakely, then Alderman Gibson Carter.
Yeah, so we've contracted with a few outfits, including Zonar, and they place basically like a GPS device. They're in our police vehicles, our sanitation vehicles, and a number of our public works vehicles. So they can, administrative staff use it for determining the best routes for sanitation, but also to monitor productivity amongst our workers, right? So if there's an issue, if there's a complaint, or if there's a concern that our employees out in the field are not busy at work all the time, we can check the record. We can see if that car was idling in a particular location for a particular period of time. And then we can use that as part of the management tool with that employee. And it's worked out really well.
All right, Alderwoman Wilder Bryan.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Bell and Mr. Deffley, appreciate your presentation. but the plan sounds good on paper. We have a plan to purchase, but what is the plan to sell over 300 vehicles? You know, how are we going to add money to our pockets? Where the vehicle's going to be kept? Who's going to be? Which department is going to be responsible for this? And how long do we get that $4-point-something million that you say we will get by selling these cars? I mean, this plan is only good as the entire pieces of the plan and not just the plan that we purchased. I am really proud to know that we're moving forward with our commitment to clean air and going electrical. But it still seems to me that to get rid of all of those vehicles at one time, it's going to be a burden on us. I mean, was there any way we have to move so that half of those vehicles, are you saying that 300 of those vehicles are ones that we need to get rid of today? And so who's going to be in the market for these vehicles that we're saying that aren't any good?
Yeah, we're not going to get a lot for them. But there is a market for basically all vehicles of all types. Again, the auctioning these items over the internet has really been a game changer over the past 5 years. It's just a broader market out there, and people buy sort of surplus government vehicles for all kinds of reasons, including other governments have just more limited plans than we do.
How many, and if you can't tell us today, please, in the near future, how many vehicles and who is responsible for selling these vehicles, and how much money have we made to date selling these vehicles that we have just put to bed?
Raphael, are you there? If you're talking, Raphael, you're muted right now.
Yes,
which department is responsible for that?
Sorry, it's Fleet Services. Raphael.
Fleet Services.
Yeah, Raphael Vega. He's our Fleet Services Director. Raphael, did you hear the question?
Yes, I did. Good afternoon. My name is
Good afternoon.
I'm the Fleet Services Director. Yeah, just like Brett said, we're responsible along with purchasing. That kind of falls on the purchasing, but we're responsible to make sure that the vehicles get transferred to or posted on Gulf deals, and then they kept here at the Salimud location, all of those vehicles. So with the 300 vehicles that we would get, I mean, it's safe to assume that we're not going to get those 300 vehicles in one shot for logistical purposes and for logistical reasons. I mean, they're going to have to be coordinated what we're going to get. So we're gonna still using that Gulf deals for selling the vehicle. So I don't have the answer for you how many we have sold and how much money we have made so in the past year or so. But I can get that information to you.
We can get that for you.
Okay.
I guess I would also add that to what Raphael said, the Gov systems, you know, that's changed the game. Like, you know, we started out with site-based auction services with people walking around, and now you have a national market for vehicles like this.
Mm-hmm. And
so forth. So I hope that mechanism now helps us maximize our price by maximizing the potential purchasers.
And where would that money go? Would it go back into Fleet Services or the capital budget, or what?
To the fleet budget.
Okay, so I just have one question, and I'm sure you guys have beat this up. So, Mr. Lovett, when we sell these attorneys, is there any way that there is a chance of liability coming back to us because they've purchased vehicles from our fleet service, or is it like everything is as is, and let the bearer beware?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
As is.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for your time, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Alderwoman Blakely.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all so much for the presentation, but I do have a question related to what Alderman Leggett was asking in reference to our labor. It says reduce labor by 2,118 hours in 1 year's time. Now, you all said that the mechanics that work in that department will not lose positions, hopefully. Is there any training for those individuals on these new vehicles? And will they be paying for it? If there is, are they going to be responsible to getting the training themselves, or will the city provide the training for those individuals?
Let me answer that. I think that the fact, when you saw the 2,000 hours, that's really about one position. And, you know, we I think would easily absorb these, you know, any relocated employees. And secondly, we've always had a history of assisting our mechanics in their specialized training so that they could readily move into maintaining these other types of vehicles. You know, for example, flatbeds, dump trucks. Many of them are cross-trained. I'm pretty sure Raphael will say that, in hydraulics, you know, in brake maintenance. So I don't see the transition as being anything other than smooth in this group.
I'm asking that question because of what happened in code enforcement, where some of our employees had to pay for testing, and those employees, some of them have not gotten paid back, and we were told that they were going to get paid. I just want to ensure that our employees are not having to pay for the training. And if they do go into the new vehicles and what have you, that we're going to be providing adequate training so that these individuals do not lose their employment with the city.
We would do that, yes.
Alderwoman Gibson Carter.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I have a litany of questions here. January 28th, we approved, I don't think I voted for it, nearly $7 million for gas and diesel. During that same meeting, there was also an approval for 61 vehicles at $1.7 million. I didn't vote for that either. And the reason I didn't vote for those items, those vehicles were for code compliance, recycling, storm services, human services, park maintenance, utility services, senior services, so forth and so on. And so my acknowledgement was, if we really have the political will and the spirit to truly align ourselves with becoming this clean energy community, why were we expending that level of resource during this time when we had an opportunity to make a purchase such as this? So we literally 3 months ago, 4 months ago, expended huge resources for inefficient vehicles. And now we arrive at present day. Mr. Bell, can you tell me the corresponding item for this on our agenda today?
It's not on the agenda as was stated. And secondly, back in January, we stated that we have an ongoing fleet need every single day. What we bought in January were newer vehicles, and then we're planning this to phase out the old ones. So there's not a conflict here or an overlap or a duplication. We bought new vehicles that will now flow into the fleet, and then we expected to take this 300 vehicles that are at the older end. I mean, you saw the ages of these things, yeah, and the mileage. A lot of them are well over 100,000 miles. So we infused some new vehicles, and then when we get through this process, then we will be modernizing and making new our fleet. So that was a rational decision that we made in January.
And it'll take 5 years to replace all of our light duty vehicles. So we'll be maintaining owned light duty vehicles.
The vehicles we purchased in January, how long will it take for those to rotate out?
I think you just said 5 years or so.
Yeah. So we'll be replacing all of our light duty vehicles, the ones that are in the current inventory.
So we could not have waited we could not have waited just a couple of months for this purchase?
But so what we have is a overall fleet, and what we have is a vehicle maintenance fund. If we stop maintaining them or set aside 100 vehicles, then we won't be out there doing the work that we need to do. That was what we're doing today was anticipated back in January. So what we said is, we know that we'll probably do that. Let's get these new vehicles in and we'll do that. And then the entire fleet will be modernized. So it's not something, it was not a mistake in January. It fit into this overall selling of this large block of older vehicles. And then these vehicles will move into that. And then we'll move to a larger electric fleet. As you heard a couple weeks ago, we don't have the facilities, and most fleet managers don't, to actually charge, 50 or 100 vehicles. We don't have that capacity, but we will get that at some point into the.
Right. So I was not saying that the purchase in January was a mistake. What I'm saying is the purchase in January was not wise, given consideration of what's being presented to us today, because I accept what you all acknowledge with, I think Alderman Purdy gave somewhat of an eloquent account of why it was necessary to replace the police vehicles with the non-energy efficient vehicles. That was acceptable, okay? Because of the fact that we needed to develop the infrastructure. But for vehicles for recycling, human services, park maintenance, utility services, our code services, no, that's not acceptable, and it was not the smartest choice. And so here we are about to invest more money in these vehicles and have to wait 5 years for 61 vehicles that we spent $1.7 million to be rotated. Okay, and with regard to the nearly $7 million diesel and gas purchase, I would imagine that we will not be using the full amount that we approved since we are rolling in these electric vehicles.
That's correct. And we said that when we awarded the fuel purchase, we said that was a approximate maximum amount. Whatever we do to save fuel, we buy fuel, you might say, at the tank level by the gallon. And so if we use less fuel, then we buy less fuel. So that's what we said when we made the purchase of the gallonage in diesel and gasoline that we did. Any savings, we just don't buy it. We won't spend $7 million on fuel.
Okay, great. I'm glad we made that public acknowledgement. So at the end of the fiscal year, we won't see an expenditure for nearly $7 million for gas and diesel.
It'll be whatever it takes to run the fleet that we have.
But it shouldn't be anywhere near $7
No,
million.
I wouldn't say that. I think you look at the amount that we spend on police vehicles and everything over the year. Any savings that we get, it'll be less than $7 million. But I guess what I have to try to, and we run this place 24 hours a day. And anytime vehicles are down, we don't pick up the garbage. We don't put officers on the street. So it's my job to make sure that they're doing that every day with the fuel and the maintenance, everything else that goes into it. I think this is a much better fleet than I was able to produce a decade ago because of technology, skill sets, and now the option of having more energy efficient vehicles.
Mr. Bell, I'm glad you acknowledged that this item is not on the agenda, and I had a reason for asking, because historically, when we have a workshop, it's basically to sort of gain a better understanding and consensus for voting on something that's on the actual agenda. So that's why I asked that question. So hopefully we can get back to that routine. But on this agenda is item 9, to purchase batteries for city vehicles from O'Reilly for $63,478. So are we purchasing the batteries before we have the cars?
The batteries what's happening is we're maintaining a fleet and then we're buying replacement vehicles. We still have to replace batteries all in the fleet that we have, and that's what our mechanics do. So it's not an inconsistent action to buy batteries and at the same time buy new vehicles. We have done that in the past. We'll do it in the future in order to keep.
These are not the rechargeable batteries.
I'm sorry?
These are not the rechargeable batteries.
No, these are just regular vehicular start the vehicle type batteries.
So, Mr. Brown, when we put our vehicles in for service, whether it's a police car or a one of these utility or maintenance or human services or recycling or cold vehicles, when we put them in for maintenance, why isn't it that they service the vehicle based on whatever is wrong with the car? Like, all of these cars don't need batteries. Do we just replace the batteries on routine just for good measure? Is that what this is?
What those batteries are, we have a stock of batteries at each location. And then we also have to be able to buy batteries dependent upon the vehicle. Pickup trucks and every single vehicle, including electric vehicles, have to have batteries to start the vehicle. That we're simply buying parts, and that's what these batteries are. They are batteries for existing vehicles, and then we will be buying new vehicles, and some of those will require batteries at the same time. So it's not, it's entirely consistent with the maintenance of a fleet.
Okay, so I'm drilling down in the weeds here because as we say these things out loud and acknowledge it to the public, we see that there is a little bit of wiggle room for us to revisit our fiscal practices, because for us to expend that amount of money for batteries to sit on the shelf, I just don't know that that is the best fiscal practice or the most responsible financial practice. Mr. Bell, you stated that—
Let me interrupt if I could. When we maintain vehicles, we need to have a stock of consistent batteries. Some specialty, let's say a starting battery for a backhaul, well, that's a big heavy duty battery. We may not have that in stock. We have to go to the wholesaler or the distributor, but it's entirely rational to have batteries both in stock and at our supplier. So when a vehicle goes down, that vehicle's battery can be replaced and they can get back into service. That's exactly how fleets are managed and maintained throughout the industry.
Mr. Bell, what is the projected cost for what you're presenting today?
It's about
to own than to rent. Why do you think we did not ascribe that practice and philosophy to the $10 million that we will be expending to rent and resurface parking at the arena?
So, right, that doesn't have to do with this, but yeah, that was